First of all, Terry, what is this drum, this huge drum that's standing next to you?
This was from a movie that was made locally here in about 1970. It included some of the illuminous musicians from our era at that time and artistic people from the community. It was a movie called Pay Dirt. And
Pay Dirt?
Yes, and in the scene, there's a bunch of people out on the street in the snow and banging the drum, sinner beware. It's a very appropriate piece for the Organ Music Hall of Fame.
Okay, let's not talk about business, but let's talk, because that can be a sore subject all the way around. But because business, in general, unless you're, well, who do you have to be? You have to be a venture capitalist or financier to have had a really good year. Let's talk about the music. What are some of the things that really stuck out for you that you saw this year?
Well, I hear from a lot of people saying that music isn't as good as it used to be. But music was pretty great this last year. And especially on the local music scene. We had so many great records here in Portland. Probably the big seller and our biggest CD seller, not our #1 overall seller of the year, but our biggest CD seller was Esperanza Spalding's Radio Music album. And when we go back into the actual just local artists that are living around the area, there was just a lot of great creative records that were made. Laura Gibson's La Grande, amazing album based on La Grande in the state of Oregon here. It really kind of told a story. It had a really great feel to it. It was really well thought out. There was
She's got the totally unique voice.
Oh, she has a really great, unique voice. She had some great players on the record. It was just overall a really amazing album. I like the Helio Sequence record that came out this year. It was kind of a change of direction for them a little bit. And both of those guys are so talented. I like this direction that they're going, and hopefully we'll see more from them in the future. There was the Curtis Salgado record that came out this year, which, I think was probably Curtis's best record that he ever made. It was
pretty much a consensus, I think.
Yeah, it was very focused. Normally he signed with Alligator Records, and normally Alligator likes to produce their own records, but he got the opportunity to make the record here before he signed with Alligator, and the record spoke for itself. Alligator signed him based on the quality of the record. It's a great soul record.
It is.
It's got that blues feel to it, but it is actually a soul record.
Totally.
And another guy from the blues community that really made a great record this year, and his first band record in a long time, was Lloyd Jones.
Made a comeback for himself.
It definitely is. I mean, Lloyd's made a couple records in the last couple of years. He did an acoustic record this past year, just a solo acoustic record, and it showed a different side of Lloyd. But this is the side of Lloyd that people have known him for years. But the record was so well done that the fans were really, really happy with it.
So what was your best-selling record?
Our best-selling record for this last year turned out to be the Alabama Shakes.
Really?
Brand new band, their first record, and it became our biggest selling record. It outsold Esperanza Spalding by just a little bit because the vinyl sales on Alabama Shake were much better than the Esperanza vinyl sales. Different audience, more of a vinyl buying audience. Close behind that was an all-time favorite of Music Millennium throughout the history of Music Millennium, was the Bonnie Raitt album. It was a great, solid record. She decided to put it out on her own, did it all under her own rules, didn't have to worry about what the major label wanted, and do I got to make a single?
Yeah.
Do I got to make something commercially friendly here?
Yeah.
She just made a really, really solid, great record.
Do you think that vinyl will be trending even more popular in 2013?
We're definitely seeing an uptrend in vinyl.
Yeah.
A lot more people are going out and buying turntables right now, and as turntables sales grow, vinyl will continue to grow too. We converted our classical Millennium location, which is connected to the building here, into a vinyl room in September, and people are liking it, and it kind of gave us the opportunity to kind of give it its own feel and its own vibe down there. We'd always had vinyl. We never got out of vinyl, even in those lean years when vinyl died, you know, through the late 80s and into the 90s and the early 2000s. We always had a vinyl section. But now, you know, it's kind of contained in its own little room and element, and it has its own little feel and vibe to it. What we're noticing is a youth culture over the last 5 or 6 years are gravitating towards vinyl. And a lot of those were people that just would listen to MP3s, listen on their iPod, listen on their computer, but they got a hold of vinyl, and they captured the same passion that I had and you had when we were young and we got the vinyl fever. Once you get it, you know, you understand it. I mean, if you haven't been around vinyl, it's hard to explain to somebody that to tell them how incredible vinyl is. I mean, vinyl's one of the greatest inventions that were ever made. The sound quality, the warmth, and everything of listening to music in that configuration is much better than listening to it on CD or digital. And I have nothing bad to say about the CD. It was definitely a good medium, but vinyl, you had this album cover with 12 by 12 art on it. Many of them opened up, and there was all these great lyrics written on there, the credits to the record. Sometimes you got posters inside. There's just a larger story to tell. It's more like art. You know, the vinyl record is more like an art piece, where the CD and the cassette tape in its day were more like a commodity.
Musically, let's wrap it up with: is there any in this environment? Can there be a next big thing? Do you see a next big thing, or are things too sort of homogenized for that to happen again?
Well, in the last couple of years, I've actually got the presidents of the major distribution companies into a room with some of the key retailers around the United States to discuss, you know, the future of physical goods. And right now, I don't think there's anybody in the industry putting any attention to creating the next big thing. And I don't know if, you know, I don't know in the ultimate end if anybody could ever eclipse the vinyl LP. And that,
I mean, actually, I meant musically.
Oh, musically?
Musically, yeah.
Well, I mean, last year was a big year for electronica music. DJs across the world were having big, giant events. Radio was accepting it. I mean, you know, Skrillex, you know, people like that were having big, big records where, you know, 5 years ago, you know, they just had cult followings. But it grew to a point. It had been bubbling for some time. And it became the big thing in 2012.
And you think it'll keep going?
Oh, I think it'll go for a little while. How long it'll continue, that's hard to say. You never can tell like these on these things. You know, I'm seeing a trend with Northwest folk related rock artists. Sales are going on the downtrend. You know, and national bands like, you know, Band of Horses and stuff aren't selling like they used to. I don't know if it was just their particular last albums, but I think I'm seeing a negative curve on the sales of those records right now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward there. Usually when you see that negative trend, it's going to go in another direction. I mean, it's not totally gone, because one of the biggest surprises of this last year was the Lumineers. And, you know, it's definitely based in that genre.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that Music Millennium lasts until the end of the next Mayan calendar.
Yes, that would be a good idea. You know, I don't think I'll be here when the next Mayan calendar ends, but I hope Music Millennium is.